Number, the lake that kept secrets, a marriage built on murder. Number, opening hook, the perfect life. Mike Williams has everything a man could want. At 31, he stands as a testament to the American dream, a real estate appraiser whose incredible work ethic has built a thriving career in Tallahassee, Florida. His boss, Ryan Ketchum, watches in amazement as Mike regularly pulls 15-hour days, arriving early and working until 1 or 2 in the morning, then returning bright and early the next day with that same infectious energy. But work is just one piece of Mike's puzzle. His true treasure sits at home in a modest house where his wife, Denise, a state accountant, keeps their lives running smoothly. Their 18-month-old daughter has become the center of Mike's universe. Colleagues remember how his face would light up whenever someone mentioned her name. He carries photos in his wallet, shows them to anyone who will look, talks endlessly about her first steps, her first words, every precious milestone. He had this incredible energy, Ryan recalls. But it wasn't just about work. He channeled that same intensity into being a husband and father. Those who know Mike describe a man who has never met a favor he would not perform. When Denise calls saying she needs gas, Mike leaves the office, pumps her gas, and returns to work without complaint. His wife sits on a pedestal in his mind, and he dedicates himself to keeping her there. Friends joke that they all want to be married to Mike Williams because he sets an impossible standard for devotion. This December morning in 2000, Mike plans to wake before dawn for one of his favorite activities, duck hunting at Lake Seminole. Tomorrow marks his 6th wedding anniversary, and he promises Denise he will return by noon to celebrate. It is the last promise Mike Williams will ever make. Number, crime scene, the first 48 hours. The sun barely breaks the horizon on the 16th of December 2000 when Mike Williams backs his truck and boat trailer to the edge of Lake Seminole. The water stretches dark and murky before him, the kind of shallow, swampy expanse that northern Florida is known for. It is popular with local alligators, but Mike has hunted these waters countless times. He knows every stump, every inlet, every dangerous spot. By noon, Mike should be home. By 1 o'clock, Denise begins making calls. By late afternoon, true crime investigators will later note the critical window, known as the first 48 hours, has already begun ticking away those crucial early hours when missing persons cases are most solvable, when memories are fresh and evidence remains undisturbed. When Thomas Reynolds and William Arnett, among the first law enforcement officers to arrive, receive the call about a missing duck hunter, they assume a common scenario. Someone fell out of their boat, maybe hit a stump, ended up in the cold December water. It happens often enough in these parts that the protocol is well established. Search and rescue teams mobilize immediately. What we thought had happened is that he possibly fell out of the boat or capsized, Reynolds explains to investigators who arrive in subsequent waves. The machinery of a missing persons investigation grinds into motion with impressive speed. The search that unfolds over the next 48 hours becomes the most intensive anyone in the region has ever witnessed. Helicopters circle overhead, their rotors chopping the air as observers scan the water's surface. Boats grid the lake in methodical patterns. Cadaver dogs work the shoreline. Volunteers from the community arrive in droves. Mike Williams is well liked, and dozens want to help bring him home. One of those volunteers is Brian Winchester, Mike's best friend since high school. Winchester searches with desperate intensity, and it is Winchester who discovers Mike's boat the next morning. On board, some decoys, a shotgun, but no sign of Mike himself. The discovery shifts the operation from search and rescue to something far grimmer, a search for a body. Searchers employ gruesome but necessary tools, long poles that they thrust into the murky lake bottom, feeling for the distinct give of human remains versus the hard thump of submerged logs. If it would have been a body, you hit it and it's kind of like a pillow, one searcher explains, demonstrating the technique that haunts his dreams. From his helicopter, one observer counts no fewer than 15 to 20 very large alligators swimming in the search area. The theory begins to take shape almost immediately. Mike Williams has been attacked and consumed by alligators. In these cold December waters, surrounded by these prehistoric predators, it seems like the only explanation that fits the facts. But one person refuses to accept this narrative from the very beginning. Linda Williams, Mike's mother, feels something wrong in her bones, some maternal instinct screaming that her son's disappearance is not what it appears to be. Something is not right here, she tells anyone who will listen. Nobody listens, not yet. Number background context. The foundation of betrayal. To understand what happened on Lake Seminole requires rewinding the clock, traveling back to the halls of North Florida Christian High School, where this true crime story actually begins. Mike Williams is the football player, the president of student council, the kind of young man who seems destined for success. Denise is the cheerleader, the secretary of student council, his perfect match in the carefully choreographed theater of high school romance. They are the golden couple, the pair everyone expects to make it. After graduation, they both attend Florida State University. Denise becomes an accountant for the state government. Mike finds his calling in real estate appraisal, quickly establishing a reputation as someone you can trust, someone who gets the job done no matter how long it takes. But the most important relationship in this story develops alongside Mike and Denise's romance. Brian Winchester is also part of the North Florida Christian high school crowd. Like Mike, he meets his future wife there. Laura and the two couples become inseparable. They buy houses at the same time. They marry within months of each other. When Denise gives birth to her daughter just before Mother's Day, 1999, Laura is pregnant too. They do literally everything together. A local TV station happens to be at the hospital the day Denise gives birth, gathering Mother's Day stories. The footage captures Mike's overwhelming joy and vulnerability. I have a whole new respect for my wife and women in general and what they go through to bring new life into the world, he says, cradling his newborn daughter with a tenderness that makes the nurse smile. Brian Winchester works in insurance, and 6 months before Mike disappears, Winchester sells his best friend a $1 million life insurance policy. Combined with Mike's existing policies, his total life insurance coverage exceeds $1.7 to $5 million. At the time, it seems like responsible planning. Mike hunts, fishes, engages in activities that carry inherent risk. His boss, Ryan Ketchum, has encouraged him to protect his family. Nobody questions it. Why would they? Brian Winchester is Mike's best friend. Insurance agents sell policies to friends and family all the time. It is only later, much later, that this detail will glow like a neon sign pointing towards something sinister. The night before he vanishes, Mike Williams plays with his daughter, kisses his wife, and prepares his hunting gear. He sets his alarm for well before dawn. Tomorrow he will hunt, then come home to celebrate 6 years of marriage. He has no way of knowing that someone he loves and trusts beyond all measure has already set a different plan in motion, a plan that will leave his daughter fatherless and his mother screaming into the void for answers that will not come. For nearly 2 decades. Number. Investigation, a mother's crusade. The official search for Mike Williams lasts 44 days. Investigators scour every inch of Lake Seminole, use every available technology, follow every possible lead. They find nothing. Eventually, reluctantly, they call it off. Mike Williams is listed as missing, and the prevailing theory remains that alligators have dismembered and stored his remains somewhere in the lake's depths where searchers cannot reach. 6 months after Mike disappears, a fisherman finds something floating in Lake Seminole, a pair of waders. 2 days later, Mike's fishing jacket, hunting license, and a flashlight surface in the same area. The items are identified as belonging to Mike Williams, and suddenly Denise has the evidence she needs. While the search is still active, while volunteers are still poking poles into the lake bottom hoping not to find what they seek, Denise files a claim against Mike's life insurance. The speed stuns observers. Florida law typically requires 5 years before someone can be declared dead without a body. But Denise's attorney argues that the waders and vest prove Mike is gone. A judge agrees, issues a death certificate citing accidental drowning, and within 6 months of his disappearance, Mike Williams is officially dead. Denise collects $1.7 to $5 million. It was abnormally fast, one legal observer notes. Most cases like this take years, not months. For most people, the case closes here. Mike Williams becomes another tragic hunting accident, another cautionary tale about the dangers of Florida's wild spaces. The community mourns, then moves on. Life continues. But Linda Williams cannot move on. She fills 27 single-space pages with notes, questions, inconsistencies that gnaw at her day and night. What made the waders float after 6.5 months underwater? Why did they surface exactly when Denise needed proof of death? Why would alligators attack in December when experts say they do not feed in cold weather? Linda contacts Christopher Oresco, an alligator expert who confirms her suspicions. Alligators do not feed in winter when water temperatures drop. When alligators kill, they always leave forensic evidence: blood, tissue, torn clothing, signs of struggle. The theory of alligator predation, Oresco explains, may be a convenient explanation for authorities, but it is virtually impossible. It is totally impossible for a 185-pound man to be consumed by an alligator without a trace, Linda Williams tells anyone who will listen. This is not what we thought it was. She makes picket signs and stands in front of churches. She commissions billboards around Tallahassee showing Mike's face with the word missing in bold letters. Most dramatically, she begins writing to the governor not once, not occasionally, but every single day for 9 years. Investigators will later confirm that the governor received at least 1,472 letters from Linda Williams. Her campaign creates friction with Denise, who wants the matter closed. When Linda presses for a criminal investigation, Denise issues an ultimatum. If you continue to press for this investigation, you will never see your granddaughter again. Linda makes her choice. She took the energy she would have spent loving on that child and tried to find her daddy, a family friend recalls. In 2004, 4 years after Mike vanishes, Linda's crusade finally catches the attention of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Investigators meet with her, review her meticulously documented questions, and launch a multi-agency investigation. This is when the true crime story shifts from a tragic accident to something far darker. The first night we talked to Miss Linda, all these inconsistencies started adding up, recalls Derek Wester from the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. The insurance, the timing of the waiters, the marriage to Brian Winchester, because that detail has not escaped anyone's notice. After divorcing their respective spouses, Brian Winchester and Denise have married each other. Friends attend the wedding, and during the ceremony, the minister announces, "I have counseled with this couple and they have no secrets." Ryan Ketchum and his wife exchange knowing glances. Well, there might be this one little secret you don't know, they think. Investigators discover that Winchester was not where he claimed to be the morning Mike disappeared. A witness places him at Lake Seminole despite Winchester's insistence he was 60 miles away in bed. Winchester's ex-wife Laura reveals what many suspected. Winchester and Denise were having an affair long before Mike vanished. The waiters that surfaced so conveniently, analysis shows they were in suspiciously good condition for items supposedly submerged for 6 months. They were not slimy, one investigator notes. That means they had not been in the water very long. It was planted. But despite mounting circumstantial evidence, investigators hit a wall. Without a body, without direct evidence, without someone willing to break the conspiracy of silence, the case stalls. Brian Winchester and Denise remain married, and Florida law protects them. Spouses cannot be forced to testify against each other. As long as they stayed married and neither one talked, nobody would ever find out what happened, an investigator explains with frustration evident in every word. Years pass. Linda Williams refuses to stop fighting, but progress stagnates. The case grows cold. Mike Williams' daughter grows up without knowing her father, believing the official story about a hunting accident. It seems the truth will remain buried forever, another unsolved mystery in the annals of 48 hours worth of true crime programming. Then Brian Winchester and Denise's marriage begins to disintegrate. Number, truth revelation. When predators turn on each other. The marriage that was built on murder crumbles under the weight of its foundation. Brian Winchester describes himself as a sex addict, attends therapy, jumps through countless hoops trying to win back Denise's affection. Nothing works. After 7 years together, they separate in 2012. For 4 more years, Winchester desperately tries to reconcile. Denise remains cold, distant, uninterested in salvaging what they once had. In 2016, 16 years after Mike Williams disappeared, Brian Winchester snaps. One morning, Denise gets in her car to drive to work. She senses movement behind her and turns to find Winchester rising from the back seat, a gun in his hand and a tarp spread on the floor. "He's got a gun! He's got a gun!" She will later report to the Leon County Sheriff's Office, her voice shaking with genuine terror. Winchester kidnaps his own wife at gunpoint, screaming and crying as he drives aimlessly. "Are you planning on ending both of our lives today?" Denise asks. "Well, mine." "I'm planning on mine," Winchester responds, repeating over and over that he wants to kill himself. Denise escapes unharmed, and Winchester is arrested, charged with kidnapping and aggravated assault. Prosecutors initially seek 45 years. Winchester's attorney hopes for 15. But law enforcement sees something else in this domestic violence case. They see an opportunity, a crack in the wall of silence that has protected 2 murderers for 16 years. Detectives descend on Denise, hoping the kidnapping has finally made her willing to turn on Winchester. Detective Patrick McCraney tries every angle. 15 years ago, he walked in and told you he'd done something. He did it, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. He was not going to kill himself, he was going to kill you so that you couldn't talk about him later. Denise says nothing. Her face remains stone, no tears, no emotion, no cracks in the armor she has maintained for nearly 2 decades. She was giving up absolutely nothing, investigators recall. But Brian Winchester, facing 20 years in prison for the kidnapping and seeing his marriage irretrievably destroyed, finally breaks. Before his sentencing, he cuts a deal with prosecutors. In exchange for immunity from murder charges, he will tell them everything, including where they can find Mike Williams's body. The recordings of his confession chill everyone who hears them. Winchester's voice is flat, matter of fact, as he describes meeting Mike at a gas station early that December morning, following him to Lake Seminole, launching the boat together as if it were just another hunting trip. I got him to stand up and I pushed him into the water. He was in a panic, obviously. I was in a panic. I didn't know what to do, and I ended up shooting him. Winchester shot his best friend in the face with a shotgun at point-blank range. He loaded Mike's body into his Suburban, pushed the boat back into the water to stage an accident, and drove 60 miles to a remote marshy area called Carr Lake, just 10 minutes from Winchester's home. There he buried Mike Williams along with any hope of the truth emerging. But 18 years later, Winchester leads investigators back to that spot. The FBI conducts what they describe as the most extensive search in the agency's history. They find Mike Williams's skeletal remains, his wedding ring still on his finger, and unmistakable evidence of the shotgun blast that killed him. Forensic analysis confirms the shot came from extremely close range inches away. This was personal, intimate, brutal. Winchester provides the final piece of the puzzle, motive. According to his confession, it was all Denise's idea. She and Winchester had been having an affair for years, but Denise refused to divorce Mike. She would not get divorced, Winchester explains. She basically said there's only one solution. As Winchester tells it, Denise could not endure the public shame of divorce. Better to be a widow than a divorcee. And better still to be a wealthy widow with nearly $2 million in insurance money to enjoy with her lover. We would end up together, we would live happily ever after, and as a side note, we've got all this money to enjoy a wonderful life together, summarizes one investigator with undisguised disgust. The happily ever after lasted about 7 years before imploding spectacularly. Number. Conclusion, justice delayed. In May 2018, 18 years after Mike Williams went duck hunting and never came home, Denise Williams is arrested and charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and accessory after the fact. She says nothing as officers lead her away in handcuffs, staring straight ahead with the same stone face she has maintained throughout this entire ordeal. It's a bittersweet feeling, says Emily Ketchum, wife of Mike's former boss. You are so thankful that she has been outed for the true person she is, but it doesn't change anything. You're still left with the same result. The trial begins in December 2018. Prosecutor Matthew Fuchs lays out the state's case. Denise liked being a widow more than being a divorcee, couldn't risk being caught with murder, so she and Winchester staged an elaborate accident. The star witness is Brian Winchester himself, the confessed killer, who admits under oath that he murdered Mike Williams. Defense attorney Benjamin Way seizes on this fact with justified aggression. When you shot Mike Williams with a 12-gauge shotgun, was Denise standing there with you? Way demands. No, she wasn't, Winchester admits. She was in my head behind me. Denise had no idea that you shot her husband in the face with a shotgun, correct? Correct. Mr. Winchester, you're a murderer. Isn't that true? Yes, sire. Mr. Winchester, you're a liar. Isn't that true? Yes, sir. The defense's strategy is clear. The prosecution's entire case rests on the testimony of a self-confessed murderer and habitual liar. There are no witnesses, no recordings, no physical evidence tying Denise to the planning or execution of the crime. It is Winchester's word against Denise's silence. Linda Williams testifies for the prosecution, recounting her 18-year battle for truth. Winchester's ex-wife Laura testifies about the affair and about Denise's message after the kidnapping. I'm not talking. The conspiracy of silence, prosecutors argue, proves consciousness of guilt. Way makes an unconventional strategic choice, refusing to allow the jury to consider lesser charges. It is all or nothing. Either the jury convicts Denise of first-degree murder or she walks free. It's a little bit of a gamble, Way admits, but he believes the state lacks sufficient evidence. After 8 hours of deliberation, the jury reaches a verdict. Denise Williams is found guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and accessory after the fact. She shows no emotion as the verdicts are read, maintaining the icy composure that has defined her for nearly 2 decades. Sometimes the wheels of justice turn slowly, but they do still turn, a prosecutor observes. For Linda Williams, now able to properly bury her son, the victory is Pyrrhic. The brutality of it, the finality of it, how anyone could do this to Mike, it kind of destroys your faith in man, says a family friend. The knowledge of how Mike died, the shotgun blast to the face by his best friend on the orders of his wife, haunts everyone who loved him. Mike Williams loved his family, put his wife on a pedestal, worked impossible hours to provide for them, and died because his devotion made him vulnerable. The kid did nothing wrong, Ryan Ketchum reflects. He got killed for it. That's the irony of this. Brian Winchester serves 20 years for kidnapping under his immunity deal, never facing murder charges for killing his best friend. Denise Williams receives a life sentence, ensuring she will die in prison for orchestrating Mike's execution. Their daughter grows up knowing the truth that her mother murdered her father for insurance money and the freedom to be with another man. Lake Seminole still draws duck hunters every winter. The alligators still swim in its murky waters. But the lake no longer holds Mike Williams' secrets. After 18 years, 2 investigations, one mother's tireless crusade, and a marriage that collapsed under the weight of its own evil, the truth finally emerged from those cold, dark depths. Sometimes the first 48 hours of a true crime investigation determines everything. Sometimes it takes 48 hours multiplied by thousands to reach justice. Mike Williams waited 18 years in an unmarked grave for someone to care enough, to fight hard enough, to refuse to accept convenient lies over hard truths. He waited for his mother to love him more than she feared losing her granddaughter. He waited for his killers to turn on each other with the same viciousness they once directed at him. Justice came slowly, painfully, incompletely, but it came, and Mike Williams finally came home.